So, hello Tina, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, it's good. Well, for me, it's morning, so good morning.
It's
I'm Tina.
afternoon for me.
Afternoon, yes, on the other side of the pond, as they say. Hi, everyone. I'm Tina, and I come from Vancouver in Canada, and I am the author of Finding My Sovereignty, a memoir that I just wrote and published 3 months ago. And I believe today we're going to have a little talk about that.
We are indeed. So, yeah, tell me a little bit more about your memoir, because it's quite a lengthy thing. When you said, I've got this memoir, would you like to see it? I was like expecting it. I don't know why, but I had in my mind that it was going to be like a few pages long.
Really?
And then I opened it, it was like 300,
Yeah.
nearly 300 pages.
Yeah, 344, I want to say.
Oh,
Yeah, no, proper novel. It reads like
yeah,
fiction.
yeah.
Sometimes when we read things that are so true, actually, they sound the most like fiction, don't they?
Yeah, I think often reality is actually stranger than fiction. Like some of
Exactly.
the things that I'm aware of, I'm like, you couldn't make that up.
Exactly
You really
right.
couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so my memoir is let's see, break it down. It's about childhood, my childhood. I had a fair amount of childhood abuse in my family. So my mother is bipolar. My father was pretty physically abusive, mental, physical, emotional on my mother's side abuse. When I was 10, they joined a very particular Christian cult. It was very cult like. Anytime someone preaches separation and isolation, you're going into cult, and don't ask questions. You're going into
Yeah.
cult territory,
Do
in
you know
my
what that
opinion.
reminds me of?
Mm.
Lockdowns.
Don't question it, right? And anytime someone says don't question it, that's when we should question it the most,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally
uh,
agree.
yes. Well, I left home pretty early. I was barely 17, but of course, and I buried my childhood trauma. So I remembered the broad strokes. I knew the big, ticket items that had happened, but I couldn't remember any details at all. It always amazed me how much my sisters remembered everything and I didn't. And I always thought I was better off for it. I was the happy-go-lucky one. I'm the Sagittarius. I traveled the world. I moved to a lot of countries. But if you took a look at my personal life, which is of course what I do in the memoir, I was dating toxic after toxic after toxic person and didn't even really have names for what they were because we didn't have
We didn't
words
have them
like
back then.
narcissism, right? We didn't have these words when we were growing
No.
up. Love bombing and gaslighting. These things didn't exist. And so it was really only well into my 40s. I'm with my third partner. We break up. Now I understand, and I have a word for it, and it's narcissist. And I understand that I have a pattern. And this is the point in my life where you're brought to your knees. My third one ended up being, so I'm reading the book for you. The third one ended up being bipolar, which is what my mother is. And so this brought me to my knees. When spirit's trying to show us that we have a pattern and trying to say, hey, pay attention, slow down, it knocks on the door, right? We
Yeah,
don't listen, knocks on the door again.
yeah,
By the third partner, it blew my damn house down, right? It was like,
yeah.
I really need you to get this. In fact, I'm just going to give you your mother for your next partner. Like, I really need you to see that they're like, can I make your pattern that you're dating your parents any clearer? I'm actually going to deliver you your mother. Of course, I thought this one was the one. It was a beautiful love story, and as they are, sometimes. And when we broke up, not only did it bring me to my knees because my relationship ended, I actually understood he was bipolar. I realized it, and then we broke up, but
Did he have a diagnosis of bipolar?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
Although he did go to the doctor for PTSD because he was a firefighter. And we figured the swings were PTSD. But I wasn't at the doctor's appointment. So what they come out saying and what happened or not, it was, you have PTSD, here's some anxiety meds. This is also why he got away with it for a long time, right? Because in my mind, I was filtering it through the PTSD all the time. And it just didn't occur to me, until a year and a half in. And when the criticism, the never ending criticism, that's really what cinched it for me, because that was my mother. Just never ending criticism when we were growing up, right? You're fat. No one's ever going to love you. You're nothing. I never wanted you. like just really terrible, terrible stuff for the mind. And he started doing the same thing. And that's when I started like triggering all over the place because it was so familiar to me. And yet I still couldn't put my finger on it. And then one night down, I sat down and I went, there's something wrong. Like we're fighting. He's always on edge. And I sat down and I actually made a list. I've never done this for a partner before, but I actually sat down and went, good traits, bad traits. Man, if you're making a list, you're already in a bad place in your relationship, right? So I was already having warning bells. But when I made the list, that's when I saw it all right there and just went, oh my God, you're my mother. What a gut punch that was, right? Like,
Yeah.
I knew I needed to end it. Of course, he jumped me to the gun because, he realized that I realized it. And in that last breakup, like that last talk, if you will, when I said, I even said, like, you're starting to scare me. Like you're suicidal a lot. And then the drinking and then this, and then the manic moods and stuff. And he even said in that conversation, like, I know, I think something's wrong with me. And I was like, I didn't want to say it because once you say it, you can't take it back. But it was already over. And so I just said, and I loved this person. We were friends too. So I said, can I be honest? Like, I think you're bipolar. And then I waited for the onslaught, right? Like I was like, but he actually started to cry and said, I think I am too. And that's when I realized this isn't the first time you're hearing this.
Right.
Because he said he was married before and he said, yeah, my ex put up with it as long as she could. And I thought, oh my, and that was even more deceptive. Because I thought, if you don't know, because a lot of bipolar people are undiagnosed, of course. My mother is undiagnosed, right? She refuses to ever acknowledge it. But of course, she's from that generation where you wouldn't acknowledge it, right? Her mother was bipolar. Her grandmother was bipolar. They were institutionalized because that's what you did in those days. So of course, there's that fear, right? About going to the hospital and you're never coming back out, right? Without a lobotomy or something. So it's understandable why they're afraid. But this had me just raging against myself. How could you be so stupid? How did you not see this coming? Or even worse, you did see it coming and you made excuses for his bad behavior. Because when you get out of it and you play it all back in your mind, you always go, oh my God, the warning signs were there on day one. Yeah. Day one, I was making excuses for you, right? Like day one. And I was mad at him. I was mad at me, and I was mad at the universe. I was so angry. How come you only ever bring me these horrible partners? What have I done to deserve this? These are the questions we ask, right? What have I done to deserve this? I'm a good person. And that was the turning point for me. That's when I sought help and I went on my spiritual journey and healed all of this.
What kind of help did you go?
So I'm looking for spiritual help myself. And I went to a girlfriend who goes to a lot of workshops and sessions like this. And I just said, I don't want anyone who doesn't really know their stuff. Like, who can you recommend? And she recommended a channeler to me. And this woman lives about 5 hours from me driving. And she just so happened to be coming down to Vancouver. So we made an appointment. Not that you can't do it on Zoom, but so when you're new to it and it's a first appointment, it's often nice to be face to face. And I needed that.
To have that
human
touch. When it's healing, I think it's nice to be in the same room.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Also, when you're new to it, you don't really understand how it works. So your mind just goes, how does this work when you don't even live in the same country? And yet it does, right? Once you understand, then you understand how the energy works. But when you're new, you don't. So I wasn't so new that I didn't understand anything about spiritualism, but I'm one of those people who had like a mini spiritual awakening, or at least awareness, let's call it that way, in my mid-20s. And then I was 1 foot in and 1 foot out for the next 20 years.
Yeah.
Not fully understanding it and clearly repeating the same patterns, right? With narcissists. And so I went to her. I found this woman. She agreed to meet me. I was really surprised that she wanted to meet in a really busy cafe. Because I thought you could come to my apartment or, we can meet. I knew she wasn't from here. But she wanted to meet in a cafe. And I thought that was weird, but she just put a bubble around us, right? Protected us. So for her, it was just normal stuff. And that session changed my life. That's for sure. Not only did she walk me through past lives, the karma that needed to be healed. And we did it right there on the spot. That really amazed me how fast it was too. And I just went, that's it. Like, say these 5 sentences and visualize this one thing and it's over. And she's like, yeah, why work on it for hours when you don't have to? I'm like, why? Of course, the stuff that's in the now takes a little longer, right? All that stuff buried in the root chakra, but the past stuff was fast. And so then we walked through this lifetime. And what I really loved about her is that there was some woo-woo stuff in there I didn't get right away that I do now, but I didn't right away. But for the most part, I understood her. And what really helped me to truly heal and forgive, because forgiving is often the hard part, was her walking me through my parents' trauma, because they never talked about their past either. And when she walked me through what they had been through, not the whole thing, just a quick few sentences, the idea is that I understood generational trauma. I really got that everything they did to me was done to them, minus the fanatical church. But again, it goes back 8 generations on one side and 6 on the other side. So understanding that it was done to them helped me have compassion for them, so that when I was ready to forgive, I was ready to forgive. And that was a big, big, big thing for me. Also understanding how the soul contract works, right? Understanding that we chose the ingredients, so to speak, that we're going to put into this body, the energy, the karmas from past lives that need to be healed. We chose our parents for a reason. We chose our family, the color of our skin, the tribe. We chose those things before we even got here. To take ownership.
That's an interesting idea. I've not heard anyone say that before.
Yes. Well, if you believe in reincarnation, then our souls are choosing to come back, right? And so we've got karma from so many lifetimes, if you think about it. So when you're making the mix of what's going to go into this lifetime, it's like, oh, you know what? That karma has been kicking around for a long time. Let's program that into the root chakra to be healed. Let's program that. Let's get rid of this. We need to choose the family. So this is how we're able to remove ourselves from being the victim, to take ownership. My soul chose these things for a reason, right? It's a hard thing, because the first person you have to forgive is yourself for choosing sometimes these lousy situations to be born in, right? But our greatest healers and teachers come from lousy situations for a reason.
That's true. Like, if you never have any challenge, what
How can you teach
growth can you have?
Exactly. So you forgive yourself, you forgive the universe because you're angry, because I was angry, right? Take ownership, took myself out of the chair of being the victim, because I was the victim in all these things, but I took my own mind out of that mentality so that I could stop only reacting to triggers, because that's what you do when you're a victim, right? You react to triggers. Now I love my triggers because they grow me. And my God, when I get one, I'm like, oh, that was a neat one. Like, it's, imagine, right? Before it used to be like days of depression or anger or something because you're triggered and you don't even know why sometimes, especially if you've buried your childhood trauma. You don't even know why you're being triggered, right? How are you supposed to heal something you don't even know it's there?
So what do you do now when you notice a trigger? What's different?
When you're first starting out, it's not going to be this easy, right? Because you're going to you need to walk through your triggers. You need to embrace them, right? Love your triggers. So for example, now when I'm triggered, I understand the steps. So let's say last year I am doing a public speaking engagement and a woman stands up and she starts accusing me of like, you should have told us we needed to do this and you didn't tell us. And I'm like, actually, I told you yesterday. And I reminded you this morning. No, you didn't. And she went on and on and on. Anyways, she was generally, when I'm, working with the public and someone has a complaint, they come to you on the side, they tell you what they have to say, you fix the problem's finished, right? I mean, it depends what the problem is. When someone stands up in front of the entire group and shouts at you, there is purpose with that, right? This is people who want to incite mob mentality. So I understand people and I'm a super strong empath. So I understand when there is purpose behind what you're doing. So she was trying to publicly humiliate me is what it boils down to. I was stood in my ground because I knew I was right. But anyways, once she sat down, I was really You know, there's people that say things to you and you go, irritates me. And then there's people that just say a word that gets right under your skin. And like that, you're triggered, right? Under your skin. So I'm supposed to be doing this public speaking thing and I'm triggered and I'm really upset. And my next thing I was going to do was tell a joke. And I was like, I am not in the place for this joke. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take 5 minutes. I put the microphone down, went and did something for 5 minutes. I wasn't talking in front of the group. I'm a tour guide, so I was on a coach. All I had to do was put the microphone down, sit around, face the front of the road, and just take 5 minutes to myself. That's what I did. So I took 5 minutes and I just went, okay, what am I feeling? I'm angry. Okay, that was pretty easy to figure it out, right? So the first step with your trigger, what is the emotion it elicited? I'm livid. Okay. Why? What? Okay, well, she publicly humiliated me. Okay, or tried to. I wasn't humiliated, but I was mad that she was trying. Next step, who does that remind me of? And that's when I went, oh my God, my mother loved public humiliation. That was her biggest thing. She's the person that if you're bringing your boyfriend over, she's going to tell the story, where you, I don't know, peed your pants when you were 7. Like she's that person, right? Where she's going to pull out your most embarrassing, humiliating story. She's going to tell it. That's her. Public humiliation. She loved that. And so now I'm going, this reminds me of my mother. It's not that woman that's the problem right now. I'm being triggered because of something my mother always did. So now I go right to the root of the problem and I go, okay, I've done a lot of forgiveness around my mother already. So I don't need to journal and do the whole big conversations with her. Now it's just layers that come up that need to be healed. And so I'm like, okay, Mom, I want to speak to your soul, right? Because I don't speak to my mother anymore. I want to speak to your soul. I forgive you. First of all, I'll say why. Like, you know what? You used to do that. That was so rude. That used to really embarrass me. You're such a, right? Say what you need to say first. Get it off your chest. Don't bypass the emotions. That's the whole idea, right? Embracing and walking through the emotions. And then you can go, and now I forgive you for that. And the whole thing's done in 10 minutes. And in 10 minutes, I've just done this healing from this trigger. And I'm not triggered now. It's like, oh, and also that woman, you're also still, that was still rude what you did. And that's not cool. And the human you that's here right now, I'm like, I might have a word to say to you too. And thank you for triggering me. Thank you for helping me heal. And I'm sending you love and light. I've worked through my trigger in 10 minutes. I know why it was there. I know what it was showing me. And again, I don't bypass it. I walk straight through the center of it.
That sounds really powerful.
It's a game changer. It's a game changer. Again, this is after a couple of years of healing, right? When you first start out, it's not going to be that fast, but you also don't have to make it super complicated either. No. That's still the general idea. You're probably just going to live in that emotion a lot longer because you're seeing them for the first time. There's going to be bigger emotions, bigger things. I'm actually in the throes. I'm almost finished. I'm writing. When I wrote the memoir, when I went to see this channeler, the idea was always you'll write the memoir and then you'll follow it up with a workbook. Because if you she said, she's the one who told me you're going to write this memoir. You're going to find your own healing while you write it. And oof, did I ever. And it was beautiful. And, all the things that come with your dark night of the soul. And she said, if you need this, other people need it. If you're living it, other people are living it. And so she said, you will publish this and it will go out there and people will heal. And then the question will be, what did you do to heal? So you'll follow it up with a workbook. And that's where I'm at now. I'm almost finished writing this workbook because I took notes the whole time I was writing, which was about 4 years. This whole sort of thing has been going on. Writing, editing, all of that stuff, publishing. I took notes for every healing that I did because I knew that it would come in handy later. And also I didn't know what I was doing when I first started.
Of course you don't.
I didn't know what to do, right? I had to go find these answers. So I used like 100 different teachers that I saw on YouTube or wherever. And so now I've compiled all their lessons and I want to put them in one just very practical workbook with things like how to deal with your triggers.
Yeah, that sounds really powerful. But like, even though you do all this healing, because, I've got similar in my past as well, like even though you do all that healing, you can still end up in a situation where you're interacting with narcissism and not realizing it
Mm-hmm.
at first.
Well, they're out there. You can't,
Uh-huh.
unless you hermit yourself, you can't stop interacting with humans, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they're out there. So, but the nice thing is that when we start to work on our chakras, because these are the energy centers in our body, you know, one of the first things that I heard when I started to heal was you don't get what you are. Excuse me, you don't get what you want in life, you get what you are, right? And of course, you take offense to that and go, I'm not a narcissist or even a jerk. Why do I keep attracting these terrible people? That's an unfair statement. You get really upset, right?
Yeah.
If you're still sitting in your victimhood.
Yeah.
But that's talking about energy. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. If you're broken, you will attract broken. And narcissists are broken people
Yeah.
as
That's
well. You
true.
know, they are broken as well. So if you are all unbalanced in your chakras, you will only ever attract people who are unbalanced in their chakras. If you want to attract a tribe that has healed, you need to do your own healing. And this is why they say you want to raise your own vibration. You need to start working on yourself by bringing yourself up and becoming healed. Now, the only thing you attract is other people who are working on their healing as well. You'll attract less and less narcissists. You
Yeah.
can't help that they're beside you in the grocery store line, right?
Yeah.
Because you know they're everywhere, but they won't be part of your inner circle anymore.
Yeah. I think it's really difficult though when you realise that you've got someone in your circle, even though you've done a lot of healing, and you find yourself responding to them in the same way, and then you're like, oh, it's that pattern again. So frustrating.
Yeah, but if you're
And
still
then you
being
just have to
triggered
pull
by
back.
them, then there's still more that needs to be healed. Or, you know, there's two things that we have our triggers for. One, people are brought into our lives to shine a light on what needs to be healed. But part of healing is also putting up boundaries, right? It's
Yeah.
the lack of boundaries that gets you to attract narcissists in the first place. Are you an empath? Yeah, empath have serious issues with boundaries, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that I'm such an empath as well. So I really have strong boundaries now, and I found that the more and more I healed, the more my inner circle dropped away. I've lost a lot of friendships, and it wasn't an argument or a fight. It's a natural process. Our energy isn't aligning anymore. So that can
Right.
be quite difficult to see everything stripped away. But that's also Spirit's way of saying, this isn't serving you. So if you want a change in your life, well, I'm trying to show you. The other trigger that we get is, oh, you think you have boundaries? Let's test them.
Yeah.
Because it's to show you your boundaries aren't strong enough. You either need to do more
Mm-hmm.
healing around this or you need to put up stronger boundaries. So if those narcissists are still coming into your life and testing you and you're following the same pattern, that is Spirit's way of highlighting that and saying, you need to do more work around this. You either need to do more healing or stronger boundaries, or probably both.
I was actually talking to a friend about boundaries and saying, well, actually, one of the other things that's helped me, my husband's boundaries are really firm. He's like unwavering, and that helps
Men are
me
good at that.
because he doesn't impose things on me because his boundaries are firm, and he wouldn't allow me to do that, push his boundaries, so he doesn't push mine.
Oh,
And like
that's
sometimes
nice.
I'll say no to him and then go, hang on a minute, you didn't say, but come on. And I'm like, oh, did I really not want to do that? You have to really think about it again, don't you?
Because you're
Do you know
not
what I
used to
mean?
it, right? Getting
Yeah.
pushback
Uh-huh.
from other people.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, boundaries are super important. I think that there are so many layers to the boundaries as well. First of all, just every human needs to learn boundaries. Men struggle with this a lot less than women. It's quite normal for men to have natural boundaries. I mean, when a relationship's over for them, they walk away and they don't think about it twice. Most of them, right? This is a broad stroke I'm making here. Not, we're not all identical people. But women, good God, we cry over it for a year and we pine over them and we try to analyze what could I have done differently, right? Because it's always your fault. What could I have done differently, right? Like, but men don't do that. And
No,
part of this is the patriarchy, right? Just because from
yeah.
day one, women are accountable for their actions. They're held to a higher standard. They're told if you can't if you can't wear all the crowns, you're not worthy. Women are pitted against women. We're our own worst judges. Whereas men are born and they have this instant get out of jail free card, and it's called boys will be boys.
Yeah.
right? The minute they act up, everyone goes, oh, boys will be boys. So it's easy for them to have boundaries and walk away because they're used to being the king of the castle, right? It's a bit harder for women to do that. And then if you throw on top of that that you're an empath, oof, empaths struggle with because empaths aren't even aware of where their feelings begin and the other person's end, right? Like that's the muddled water of emotions for empaths. And that's why you're even going, am I the one who wanted to not go, or did I just say no? Wait a minute. You're testing you're not even sure, you're not even solid about what your own boundary is or what your own needs are. Did I want to go or didn't I, right?
It's really interesting because like when I've got a couple of businesses, and when I started my businesses up, I did some business coaching, and they were doing like bucket lists and stuff, and I was like, oh, no one's ever asked me what I want in my life before. What do I want? And it took me ages to think what I wanted.
Wow.
And then in the end, I just wrote some stuff down and sat with it for a bit to see if I really did want it. Like, it's been such a weird process getting in touch with what I want.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. You know, there's one of the first things I talk about in the book is to not only to dive in, obviously, and find out sort of your own where you're at, right? Where you were at when you were raised, and then to go back and to reparent your child, your inner child, the way that you were not parented, you know, all the things you felt like you missed. Because when we fight with someone, we are fighting with their inner child, right? Whenever we are triggered, whenever an argument starts, it is not the adult you're fighting with, it is their inner child. If they are not healed yet, if they haven't worked on themselves, their child is running their life. And that's why people do such immature things when they're triggered, right? You can tell when you're dealing with someone who has healed because you're dealing with the adult self when they are triggered. Even me, right? That woman triggered me and I went, interesting. Why am I triggered? Instead of having a meltdown, you know, and feeling that energy all day long. So once we start to work with these things. So, but to reparent the inner child, if you do anything for 30 days, you cement it. So one of the things that I had to do, and so then I suggested in my workbook, is I did the whole journaling, speaking to my child, hugging her, you know, reparenting her. But then I wanted to do the 30-day thing. So I started with 30 days of positive affirmations, and I would listen to those while I slept, to first of all get myself to take my mother's voice that was the narrative for the last 40 years, and to put my own narrative in there, which is like, damn girl, you're fabulous, right? That is my new narrative. There's nothing you can't do. This might help you in the way that once you start to feel worthy, then maybe you'll also go, and now what do I want?
Yeah, I think
It's
I am
something
better
you might
than it.
try.
I am better at it now, but it was when it first happened, I was like, oh, I've never asked myself that before. And like, I was, what, in me early 30s, maybe? Late 30s? Not sure.
Hey, so it's been a minute since you've, okay, I thought
It's
that's
been a
newer.
while because I'm
Gotcha.
48 now. It's not something that's just happened. But yeah,
Okay.
actually, someone upset me the other day because, well, it's a long story and I won't go into it, but someone said something and it upset me and I was like, oh, and then I went, hang on a minute, this isn't my stuff, this is her stuff. And then I was all right. It didn't take very long to calm down.
Right. So next time, though, this isn't my stuff, it's hers. I'm giving it back. That's brilliant. That's what empaths need to do. But if it triggered you, next time go, why am I triggered? What emotion did that just evoke?
Mm-hmm.
Who does that remind me of? And if it goes nowhere, then you know, nope, that actually it's not even about me. It's just her stuff, right? Like,
I think that actually happened, but not consciously, if that makes sense.
Yes.
That did happen. I know exactly where it came from, and
there you go.
And it was easy to let go. So yeah, I've done a lot of personal development too, but I'm fascinated in this process that you've got because I'm not sure how I did it.
But see,
I'm
your
not sure
instincts
how
knew to do it, right? Like, that's how I learned to do it as well. Like, my instincts sort of walked me through it because our spirit is always guiding us. Our soul, it's not going to lead us astray, right?
It's
we follow our instincts.
Evolutionary, it's in us, isn't it? It's baked in to seek life and to seek healing.
Yes. And ascension, right? That's why we're here.
Yeah.
We're on this planet. It's a school. We're here to learn and we're helped to ascend this planet and, by default, the entire universe. So that's our job,
Yeah.
right?
Definitely. Yeah. So tell me more about this cult, because I find them fascinating. I think I'm starting to learn a little bit more about this cult-like behaviour.
Mm,
But it's not something I've taken much notice of up until quite recently, but now I'm seeing that it's quite, well, obviously it's unhealthy, but it happens quite a
a
lot,
lot.
doesn't it? More than I realised.
Mm.
I think
Well,
the internet exposes you to these things, doesn't it?
absolutely. I mean, we are in a completely different world again than we grew up in, right? But I think also, I think we're redefining what a cult is. Right when I was growing up, I mean, the 70s was the age of all these new cults, right? And we remember, drinking the Kool-Aid and, these big name sort of cults that were out there. And so I think to some degree, the public and even myself felt like if they weren't all in a camp drinking the Kool-Aid and dying, then it's not a cult, right? But really, if we think about what's defining a cult, it's again, as I said earlier, separation and isolation. Anything that is separating you and isolating you from the rest of the world, there's already a problem there. There's already an issue. Throw on the fear mongering, the mind control, the brainwashing, because that's what it is, and the don't ask questions, you've got a cult.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but most of Christianity is a cult as far as I'm concerned. And I'm sure I'll get slayed for that, but I don't care actually, because I lived it. So I know what I'm talking about. This particular church was very fire and brimstone kind of church. Like you think about your Southern Baptist USA kind of, where they're dancing in the aisles, hallelujah, Jesus, shouting amen
I
while the
would call
preacher's
that
singing.
happy clappy.
So one of those. Okay, so
Yeah.
it was one of those churches. We had to go 4 times a week, right? Like it was Tuesdays and Fridays and twice on Sunday. And then they pulled us out of public school and made us go to the church's school. So, like, complete separation from the world. We weren't allowed to talk to people who weren't Christians because, of course, they're all going straight to hell. Right? Of course they are. So you were only allowed to hang out with the people who went to the church with you. And it was a very fear-based church. This is what I've never understand. Like, Jesus's whole message was love. But these churches take this, and of course, this is the cult, right? This is the men created this in order to let's say man, okay, at the time it would have been men though, back in those days. But men created this in a way to make a lot of money and control people. And that's really what Christianity is. When you preach, they could have preached love. That's what's Jesus's message, but they choose fear. So right there's something wrong, right? Fear, fear, fear. I mean, I feared going to hell. I feared disobeying God. I feared disobeying my parents who already had super unrealistic rules. Now they had ridiculously unrealistic rules because the church did. So for a narcissist, that's even more fun. Look how much worse I can make your life by joining this church. And it exalts me as well, right? We weren't allowed to have a television. I'm 10 years old. We have a normal, what I would have called normal. It was abusive, but still I would have called it normal because I didn't know. You
Yeah,
don't
you
know,
don't know
right?
when
You
you're a
don't know
child.
when you're a
No.
child. You just think everyone lives like that. And so all of a sudden, though, we get rid of our television. We're no longer allowed to listen to any music that isn't Christian. So we get rid of all of our albums. We would have had albums back in those days. We're not allowed to go to public school anymore. No makeup. Not that I was wearing makeup when I was 10, but no makeup, no jewelry. My mom, this would have affected my mother, who was very beautiful. She had beautiful red hair, and we weren't allowed to cut our hair anymore. Women aren't allowed to have scissors touch their hair. So it's not even just that they wanted your hair to be beautiful. It's that you're not even allowed to touch it with scissors. It wasn't beautiful hair. It was
No.
it was years and years of neglect and disgusting, hair, split ends and all of that. No alcohol, obviously the big ones, no sex before marriage, all of these things, no swearing, no dancing. And I was a dancer. So from the time I was 2 till I was 10, I was a child prodigy and I was never allowed to dance again.
Kind of
And
dancer were you? What sort of dancing?
I did ballet, tap, and jazz. Ballet is where I was the prodigy. In fact, I by the time I was 10, I had skipped so many years of I was with the teenagers, basically. And I had this strict old Russian ballet dance teacher, the typical Russian stern face, never smiling, very strict, but of course she was very good. And she had pulled my mother aside when I was 10 and said, listen, like, your daughter's it. Like she's it. She's going to be famous. And in fact, next week, the Russian ballet is coming into town. They're looking for children to do their world tour of the Nutcracker Suite. I think you need to audition her. She's going to get it. And that was the week they found God. And I was never allowed to dance again. So imagine what that does to a child, right? I don't even think I fully understood it as a child. It was when I was 18, graduating from high school, and someone said to me, what do you want to be when you grow up? That I went, all I ever wanted to be was a ballerina. That's when I realized, and it was too late. You're 18, you're way too old.
You didn't
because
pick
I'd be
it
starting
back
from
up then?
scratch. No, I would have been starting from scratch, right? Yeah, no, you're already
Not
too
even
old.
for fun? You didn't go back
No.
and...
No,
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
such a
I
shame.
I left home in the middle of high school, so in the middle of grade 12, so I was working two jobs just to pay rent. Who had time for
Yeah.
or could afford that was really what it boiled down to. We were poor, I was broke. So, and then I think when I was 25, I took a class just for fun, just to yes, embrace it. And of course, by then, you're too old. You're way too old to be starting again. But I did it for exercise and just for
Yeah.
fun. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
such a waste of talent.
I know.
But I
Yes.
guess for a narcissistic mother, they tend to be jealous of their daughter. And if someone says something that nice about you, they've said something really positive, she's going to really struggle with that.
And my mother wanted to be a model. She was beautiful. She was slim. And, she did a couple of pictures when she first left home herself. And then she got pregnant. So she never got to have that dream. And she reminded us of that dream every day that we were alive. Because, of course, it was always, you're
It's your
fat.
fault.
You're not skinny like me. I used to be a model, I should probably ever took one picture, but I used to be a model, right? And we always couldn't live up to our beautiful, slim,
But
nice body mother
surely you
model.
were you really fat? Or was she just saying
No,
that you
not
were?
at all. She
I
was
was
just
going to
saying
say,
that. Yeah.
like,
Well,
you
and
couldn't have
until
been
I
fat
was,
if you were a ballerina.
thank you. But that's when it started, was after that, you see, the minute we weren't allowed to dance anymore, of course, we all gained weight. I still don't think we were fat.
Mm.
But my God, the body image that I had growing up. I mean, I still look in the mirror and I have to, when I go, oh God, Tina, I have to go, no, we don't talk like that to ourselves anymore. I look back at the pictures where I thought I was so fat in my 20s and I go, I would kill to look like that again. Right. Yeah, that was certainly something that plagued me. But yeah, no, I don't even think I was fat growing up. And that's the irony, right? But you tell someone every day something, they believe it.
They
It's
do.
programming. That is the programming, right? The brainwashing was coming from the church and it was coming from the parents, from both my
So,
parents.
so it was about when you were 18 when you left the cult?
I was barely 17, weeks
Right.
within my 17th birthday, and when I left home, and therefore the church. Yeah.
And what triggered that? Or was it like, how did
Um,
that come about?
a couple of things. My sister left home 6 months earlier, so it was on my mind, but I didn't know where I was going to live or where I was going to go. Oh, the actual thing that triggered it was in the last year, in grade 11, actually. So for us, that's the last 2 years of high school. My parents lost their sponsor that was paying for us to go to the private school that the church ran, because it did cost money, and we were really poor, so we couldn't afford it. They lost their sponsor and they didn't want any more handouts either. It was my father's pride basically was starting to affect him, and because he was working now, and they were doing a little bit better but still couldn't afford it. So anyways, I went to public school. So in grade 12, one of my girlfriends became pregnant, and of course the man didn't, the boy didn't want anything to do with it. So she asked me if I would be her coach and if I would go to the Lamaze classes with her. And so this would have been every Tuesday for, oh my God, this was a long time ago. I don't know how long Lamaze classes last, 6-8 weeks. And we had church on Tuesdays. So I went home and just said to my mother, listen, there's a girl at school. She's in need. She would like me to be her coach. I would like to do this for her. She's all alone. Can I skip church on Tuesdays and go to the Lamaze class. And of course, I got a massive, monologue about how she's a whore if she's having sex out of marriage anyways, and you shouldn't be hanging out with people like that. You're not allowed to be friends with people like this, la la la. And she went on and on and on and on and on. And my argument was, I'm pretty sure when Mary Magdalene, who we all know wasn't a whore anyways, but let's just throw the Bible at you. When Mary Magdalene, I'm pretty sure it was Jesus who said, he who is without sin cast the first stone, and showed her kindness. And aren't we supposed to be emulating Jesus? Well, my mother
She
didn't
wouldn't
like
have
that.
liked that.
Oh
No.
my God, right? So what she didn't realize is that all those years she'd been forcing me to go to that Christian school, I had literally memorized books of the Bible. I could out scripture her any day, and I did. And so, she had no argument. I mean, she tried, of course, right? But I threw scripture at her. So the worst, and so she didn't like that. So essentially it came down to, if you walk out that door on Tuesday night, don't ever come back. And I just went, yeah, okay, I'm good with that. And that's what I did.
I accept your terms.
That's it. So, it's not, I didn't run away. They kicked me out. They made me choose between doing good or not. And I chose to do good. Someone who needed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so were you there for the birth? And
I wasn't. Oh my God.
oh, well,
I know, that's what it boils down to, is that, okay, stupid teenager. After we graduated from high school, I was invited to go out for like a night, and we went out. It was 2 hours away, so we ended up getting a hotel and spending the night. And of course, she went into labor early, and I think it was early. I actually don't remember. And that was the night she went into birth, and I didn't have a car. And the people who drove me were drunk. So I did go to the Lamaze classes. I went to every Lamaze class, and then I wasn't there for the birth. And I sat in a closet and cried for 2 hours because my sister really let me know how irresponsible and stupid I was. And I felt really bad. Yeah. So, I felt terrible. In the end, I was not there, but yeah.
Did you have someone there to support her?
She had her mother, who was always sort of there. She grew up in a military family. So as you can imagine, it was just a strict household. So when she got pregnant, obviously it wasn't very welcomed, but she still lived at home, and they were there for her birth.
Yeah. So she did have support.
She did. Yeah. It just wasn't me.
Oh.
I know.
Well, I suppose
I
that was yeah. And you don't think the same way when you're 18, do you? You just I was thinking back to when I was 18 and some of the decisions that I made and the way I thought about things, and it just wasn't logical.
No, I was even 17 actually, because I just graduated. I graduated when I was 17, so I went to all the Lamaze classes, but I didn't. I never had a baby, right?
No,
we were just kids.
And you wouldn't know what was like. You wouldn't have known what to expect, I would guess.
Yeah.
Even though those classes would have helped with some of that, like it's different being told something than actually being experienced in it.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, and if someone's early, I don't know that my 17-year-old mind, that was invited to like, hey, we're going to go out, and I don't even remember what we were doing. It was just something that was far away. And so we spent the night, and, anyway. Yeah. I was there for every moment after, I was there for every moment before and every moment after, just not the moment.
And are you still friends now?
No. And guess what? She's bipolar.
Oh, is she?
Actually, I don't know if she's bipolar, but she's quite sociopathic. That's for sure. Yeah. We didn't, we just fell away from each other just naturally. Cause I also just moved to a lot of countries when I was, in my life, I've just moved a lot, and we fell away naturally for like 20 years.
Right.
And then I came back to Vancouver when my father was dying of cancer, and I don't know if she Facebooked me out of nowhere. And so it was like, oh my God. And I needed somewhere to stay while he was dying of cancer, because I lived in Mexico at the time. And so she's like, come stay with me. And I went, I'll pay rent or whatever. And so I went to stay with her, and it lasted 2 months before I realized, oh, wow, I think she was also a coke addict. She was definitely some drugs there. But I thought, oh, you are a sociopath. When someone's cat is all over you and they absolutely love you, and the person looks at you and they have that look on their face when they say something like, My cat likes you better than they like me. I don't think I like that. And you just go, I just saw like, I'm going to stab you in your sleep. That vibe, right? I'm sorry that your
Oh,
cat likes me better than she like there was that vibe. It ended up very ugly. We had a big blowout. And so
dear.
yeah, because narcissists were my pattern.
Yeah. So before I stumbled across narcissists as a term and stuff, I was reading, I was like, what is this? And it was sociopaths and psychopaths that I was looking into. And I read this book called the Energy Vampires, I think,
Mm,
or the Vampire Next Door, something like that. This book about like emotional vampires,
yes,
and then I stumbled on narcissists, and I was like, that's it. It's not that.
that's
It's this. So do you think there was something like that going on here, or was
oh,
it another
absolutely.
narcissist?
Well, narcissists are energy vampires, right? I mean,
Mm-hmm.
this is what it all boils down to is that we're all energy, right? And we need energy to survive. We can't exist without it. And we need to get our energy from somewhere. Back in the old days, we lived in tribes. We got our energy. We lived in tribes and we walked on the ground on the earth in bare feet, right? If we go back to tribal days. So the tribe was never about individuality. First of all, it was about the whole, but as well, we were naturally earthing all the time because our feet were on the earth. Literally, we lived in nature at one with nature. Now that we live in cities and we wear shoes and we put carpet under our feet, we're never earthing, unless we go to the beach or something like that. We're never earthing. We don't know where to get our energy from because we're no longer getting it from Gaia. So we take it from each other. And we've been doing this for a long, long time. And that's where energy vampires come in. So we do this naturally, anyways. There's a reason that they say the first year of any relationship is the honeymoon phase, right? Because when you are trying to woo that person and you're, in love with them, you're both just freely giving your energy because you're like, I'm so happy to be in your space, right? And you share this beautiful energy. Naturally, after a year, humans stop doing that. We start holding on to our energy because now I come home from work and I go, I feel a little tired today and I know you need a little bit of my energy, but I just don't have it to give it to you just today. And that's how it starts, right? And so we start holding on to our energies and our control dramas that we can't help because they're part of our makeup, right? Our broken, our trauma, they start to play out. So if the narcissist is always trying to steal my energy, I'm always trying to desperately hold on to it. And that's what narcissists do. That's why they love bomb you and do all of those things to suck you into their drama. This is also where fear mongering, this is why churches do it, right? Governments, my goodness, whenever you leave people in fear, you're controlling them and you're feeding off of that energy. If we took energy where we're supposed to get it from, we wouldn't need to steal it from each other anymore. If you go into meditation every day, take a walk in the forest, right? Meditation comes in many forms. People are locked into doing the yoga position, grounding your root into Mother Earth Gaia, and getting your energy from there. Absolutely. That's, of course, how it's done. It's not the only way it's done. Go take a walk in the forest, go sit on the beach. Do some yoga. This is grounding you as well. If we're doing these practices, we don't need to take energy from someone else anymore because we're getting it from where we're supposed to be getting it. So energy vampires don't know where to get their energy from. And so they have to steal it from other people. And in fact, 70% of the world out there that's not spiritually awake is doing the same thing. That's why it's exhausting going out into the
Yeah,
world.
that makes so much sense. I've never
Yeah.
heard anybody put it like that, but yeah, that makes so much sense.
As an empath, that's even worse for you because you have no control around your emotions and you're feeling everyone else's emotions. You're so unaware of like what's even yours that how do you even begin, right? So for empaths, it's really important to, I mean, every day I protect my home. Every day I protect my energy field. I don't allow people to steal from me anymore. I cut cords continuously. And as an empath, that has to practically be hourly because people just, and the bigger your light shines, the more people go, ooh, I'm depleted. why are you so bright? And they want your light. So you have to protect yourself even more the more lighter you become, because people go, I want what she has. They're automatically drawn to the light, but then they don't know how to get it. So they try to steal it from you instead of getting their own.
Yeah, I've noticed that actually every time I feel quite powerful and happy and energetic and all of that in a good place, someone comes along to try and cut me down.
Yes. Cut cords, cut cords, cut cords. Protect, protect. Every morning when I wake up, I'm protecting myself in my home. And every night before I go to bed, I'm doing the same. Yeah. And when I work with the public, every time I have an engagement with the public, I cut cords. Even a conversation like this. You're way over in England. I'm in Canada, but we're still talking. We're connecting. We're sharing energy with each other. At the end of this conversation, I'm cutting cords. And that's not even because I think you're an energy
I
vampire.
was going
That
to
is
say,
just
what have I done?
no, it's just automatic that our souls kind of reach out to the people we're talking to and just create these cords. And so it's nothing you're doing. I'm not feeling any weirdness coming from you or anything like that. But if I make this a practice, then I never forget to do it. There are days when I sit at home and I'm like, oh my God, I have a raging headache. What's going on? Because I don't just get headaches all the time. And then I go, oh, wait a minute, I was just with that person. I forgot to cut cords. And I'll do it immediately and the headache will disappear immediately. So I just make it a practice after every interaction with people to just cut cords. Yeah.
And how do you do that?
I simply say it's a sentence. I choose to cut all cords to anyone and anything that no longer serves my highest good. That's it. If I had an encounter with someone particularly strong, or like my mother reaches out to me a lot and tries to attach cords. I haven't spoken to her in 5 years, but I still feel it almost daily. Her energy cords coming to, because when someone has sucked your energy for 20 years of your life as a child, that's now an addiction for them. They like that energy that's coming from you, right? So they will seek you out. This is also why I do it all the time, because I haven't spoken to her in 5 years, but I still feel when I get a raging headache, it's usually my mother or one of my exes coming to attack. So if I can't get rid of it really fast, then I will call in Archangel Michael to help, because he's got that great big wonderful sword. I've also been taught picture golden scissors and cut the cords. So if you're sort of just feeling like maybe it's extra that day, or someone was extra sort of just gross, dark, call help, right? Our team is around us all the time, just waiting for us to ask for help. They can't intercede unless we ask for help. Ask for help. I don't have to do it
Yeah.
alone. We are not alone.
Yeah, we're not. I think that's one of the things that we do is when we've been through trauma, obviously not everybody, but often we're raging independent
Yes.
and we don't ask for help.
Well, the more trauma we have, the more out of control our life was. So the more we become a control freak. Every control freak you ever meet in your life, there's trauma there. That's where it came from. We're doing what we think we have to do to survive. That doesn't mean it's serving us anymore, right?
Yeah,
Because living in that state of constantly need to be in control, oh my God, how exhausting.
it
How
is.
exhausting. And then we need to steal our energy from someone, don't we?
Yeah, really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So, if the viewers want to come and connect with you, where can they find you? Like your manuscript and your memoir and um that sort of thing. Are you promoting it?
I do, yeah. My memoir is called Finding My Sovereignty. It's available on Amazon, so you can go to any Amazon in your country and purchase it there. Finding My Sovereignty. I also have an author's website, so you can go there if you'd like. And then the link to purchase it is also there. It'll probably bring you to the US site. I think I just automatically threw the US site on there. But my website is called www.sovereign&sage.
If
All
you
one
send
word,
me send me the
sovereign and
links,
sage.
I'll put them in the notes.
Beautiful. I can do that for sure. Yeah, I
Yeah,
can
yeah,
send you the link to the Amazon one. I'll send you the UK site since you're in the UK.
yeah.
And
Well, I have viewers all over the world.
wonderful. Okay, yep. I'll throw in just .com then or whatever, and everyone knows
Yeah.
what to do from there. Again, you can also go to my website and you can find the link for that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, Tina, thank you so much for joining me today. It's been a really interesting conversation and I feel quite energized, so hope I haven't stolen too much of your energy.
No, not at all. No, but you see, because we're both giving, right? Do you see
Yeah,
the difference? Like both
yeah,
of us are in a giving place right now. And so we're energizing each other.
yeah,
There's a
that's the
difference when
ideal, isn't
someone's
it?
stealing, right? Yeah.
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 Brilliant. Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Thank you for having me on. It was a pleasure.